It's now 6 o'clock. We'll call the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, June 24th to order. Please call the roll.
Okay. Commissioner Urbani.
Here.
Commissioner Barnes.
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Gentis.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Stoker. Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the minutes from May 20th.
Move to approve?
Motion and a second. Any comments or corrections to the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. I'm going to take one item out of order, mainly because it requires no instructions or votes or anything. It's policy item 5, Prin 2, design guidelines for commercial structures. So there's nothing on the agenda tonight that we're going to decide. We're all just getting a homework assignment to fill out this survey, and it's kind of you choose what you like better and tell staff why. And then we're going to have all the results next month. So there's nothing really to discuss tonight. We'll get some homework and we'll see what we all think in a month. And then that'll save us from having to take that up at the end, and Jack can leave after his first item. I don't want to keep you here any longer than you have to be. So
Yeah, if we could just have them back by the 8th. If not, we will offer pickup service on the 9th if you can't drop them off. So
all right. So that's policy item 5 Prin 2. Nothing really to discuss here. Which brings us to our main policy items for discussion. Item 2 Prin 1, the distillery text amendment. So who's going to...
Brian, I think, was going to attempt...
Virtual Brian. We've got our city attorney virtually tonight. Brian, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you reasonably well.
Excellent. Well, greetings from about an hour into the future. Had to unfortunately be in Michigan this evening, so I wasn't able to be there in person. But the first item for you this evening is a text amendment that centers primarily around distillery uses within the town center district. And in front of you on the dais this evening should have been a slightly corrected version from what was ultimately put in the packet. We identified both at the request of the potential applicant, who you'll hear from a little bit later this evening, a potential change that we made, and then also there was some miscommunication between myself and planning staff in terms of another change, and I'll talk briefly about both of those here in a moment. So if you look on the first page of the handout, effectively the first change that's made is that we add to the use table within the zoning code for the town center district a limitation, I guess is the best word, for breweries, distilleries, and wineries that we would limit those to 4,000 square feet of gross floor area. The change that is reflected on the paper version that's in front of you is that we wanted to identify that that was only limited to the production area, not the total overall uses. As we'll talk about in a moment, in particular with distilleries, the intent is that it's not just the distilling that's taking place, but that there are other activities that are involved as part of it. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the 4,000 square feet that limited the total activities on the site, but instead just the total production that was there. And so that's the first change that you see between the packets and the version that's in front of you that's there. But the idea behind putting the 4,000 square foot limitation in place really was just to ensure that the use here is not inconsistent with what the overall intent of the town center plan is, which is to be a kind of walkable, pedestrian-oriented type facility, which obviously would be harmed if you had a bunch of manufacturers that would move in. And so we wanted to make sure we were limiting that total space that was utilized for production to ensure that we didn't mess with the scale on any of those things. The second change that the proposed ordinance does is there in section 2 as you move down the page. The changes here apply not just to distilleries but to any uses within the district. The changes in the first paragraph, you'll see we talk about the fact that first floor facades shall continue to maintain an open and transparent storefront and windows that are part of kind of the overall intent again of the district to keep interest and activity and those types of concerns that are there. Sub 2 is something that was added again primarily to address that same concern. That we want things that are, when you look in the windows, you're seeing activity and people and interest, not the backs of storerooms and just materials stacked up in a corner and that kind of stuff. And so that's that particular change. As you then move down, here is the area where the miscommunication took place. You'll see that under the windowed section of the what will be sub 3, it's currently sub 2 under window area. There's a bunch of text that's stricken out, and I'm not totally sure why we ended up crossing that out, but that was not intended, and so we obviously fixed that in the paper version that's in front of you. None of those provisions were intended to be struck. It just showed up that way in the packet, and so we corrected that. Moving to section 3, here's really the meat of the micro distillery changes. The issue that we had with micro distilleries in particular is that the potential applicant, as you'll hear from this evening again, identified some potential inconsistencies with federal regulations as it related to distilleries and our requirements within the local code. Our requirements, as you can see, primarily required not only the manufacturing or the production of the distilled spirits, but it also required on the same premises retail sales, the ability to consume spirits, a tasting room, and then also an indoor and outdoor event space. And there are some concerns that some of the federal regulations wouldn't necessarily allow all of those activities to be on the same physical footprint of a building. And so the solution that we came up with was to basically still say that a micro distillery is going to require all of those elements. And as you see at the bottom of that paragraph or that section, we talk about a 60% of total floor area being kind of assigned to the bulk of what's taking place on the property, but we do allow them to satisfy the requirements of each of those items, either with something that is on premise to the extent that they're able to. For example, tasting rooms typically are not overall problematic under the federal regulations, and so they can have a tasting room in the distillery, but some of the other things that they were concerned about, we would allow them to do that on an off-site location within the town center district, within the zoning district, or potentially both. We may see that there might be similar uses in both particular locations that might be there. And so that's the primary change that was made from the existing code to our current code is really to just address those inconsistencies between what we required and what the federal government required. The remainder of the changes that were made both in that section and then in the final section, section 4 of the ordinance, really are just more technical, to clean it up, make it read better, and more consistent overall with the code as a whole. So we basically pull out a definition of micro distillery that gives us the ability to then reference that section in other places in the code as we might deem that it might be necessary moving forward if we were going to add that use, for example, in a different district. So that is the overall code amendment that is proposed, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Turn my own mic back on. Thank you. Any questions from the Planning Commission? That was a lot, but hopefully you're able to follow all of it. Perfectly straightforward. All right. Any questions? Going once, going twice. Do we need a vote on this?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. We can still debate it, or we can have a motion. We can.
Second.
Motion and a second. We can actually still debate it a little bit. Any concerns or comments from anyone? Everyone's getting excited about going to the distillery. Okay. Well, if there are no comments or questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that's going to move on to council for adoption?
Correct, yes.
All right. We'll see it maybe next month. Excellent. Moving on, we have two public hearings, also related to the same item in many ways. Two public hearings, one Mequon and Goisman. Did I get that right? Pretty close. SC for Foxtown 1 LLC. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a nightclub on the property located at 11120 Northweston Drive. Is there
Second.
motion and a second? All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak on this item? Sir, please come to the podium and state your name and address, and so staff can read it into the record.
Bill Seafelt, 11090 Northwestern Drive, Suite 310. I have a question on the first referendum. What building is that distillery going to be located in of the two there? Because the buildings, the address of the buildings cover everything in that one building. Each storefront doesn't have their own address, so I was just concerned where these distillery and this nightclub are going to be located in those two buildings.
Well, we typically don't field questions in public hearing, but we'll queue it up, and staff will get to that as soon as we get out of public hearing.
Okay.
Maybe while we're in public hearing, you could state your potential concerns in more detail. Is it just the location, or?
Well, I live at 11090, which is where the cycle shop is and the flower shop. So my concern was the noise factor.
Sounds good. We'll discuss that more when we're back in regular
Okay.
session. All right. Thank you. Does anyone else here this evening wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're back in regular session again. We can start off with a brief description and maybe clarifying which use is in which building.
Sure. And the reason we took this after the text amendment, because the text amendment is needed for this to be approved, even though we tried to work with in the confines of what we could do on our code, we still need that text amendment to get this both of these items approved. So this distillery portion is going to be in E2, which is going to be the most southerly building. So if you can imagine this, there's a drive aisle between the two buildings. That's located basically down this stretch right here. So this building is to the south, and this basically is basically facing Weston Drive. I can try to give you a map shot better if you'd like to see that. But so this portion is in the E2 building, it's called, with the bike shop, and The nightclub will be in the adjacent building to the north, on the other side of the drive aisle, which we'll get to in the next item. So this item here, this is all the actual distillery operations will take
What?
place in this, yes.
I think we're on the nightclub.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip
Nope.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then switch it. Yes, the nightclub is in the, I went too far, sorry. So the nightclub is in the other building. So basically, let's just flop that. So then here, this is E1. So here's the Weston Drive, here's the drive aisle, and this would be on the north building. So this is the section where on the other end of it is the meats, the Foxtown Meats, and then there's a bakery. So this will be right on the end cap, basically. So this is the nightclub version. The reason they went down this path as a nightclub is this is the portion where they want to do most of the retail sales. And they're still concerned with the federal law regarding whether they can sell it in the distillery portion or not. So this is one way we could work with the confines of the code to allow that operation to still take place. This is not going to be a traditional nightclub, but it does meet the definition of a nightclub. So they'll have their bar, they'll sell. Oh, yes.
I guess that's something unique we should point out. We call it a nightclub in our code, but it's really just a bar.
Correct. So this requires conditional use approval, but it is part and parcel with the actual distillery functions. Now, they do show outdoor seating. They have some spaces here. They don't show a lot of details, so we're just asking for a final outdoor seating plan. We also put a limitation on the hours of operation at 11 p.m. outside, and then the inside would be limited to our typical standard requirements for 1 a.m. for the weekends, and I think it's midnight during the week, which, typically that's just based on volume, and we don't see too much of that late night volume here. So with regard to the nightclub, we're recommending approval of it. This one actually can stand alone. This one does not need the text amendment approval because it's already in our code. The next one will need the text amendment approval before we could proceed.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Jensis.
Jack, quick question. Does the classification nightclub carry any broader meaning? You said this is going to be used as a bar. I just want to make sure that is
Under our definition, it's one and the same. It's kind of an all-encompassing term. I mean, if you might recall, they didn't go forward, but the bottle shop was going to open in Spur 16, and we called that a nightclub as well. That's just the terminology in our code. So there's there's not going to be any heavy, disco music or anything like that going on. It's just going to be a typical bar.
Jack,
Go
also,
ahead.
I see
Yeah.
there's a future kitchen. If this would become more of a restaurant operation, does anything change or?
No, not necessarily. If the primary function's still a bar, they can serve. It depends on what they plan on doing with that future kitchen. It could be appetizers. It could be just smaller plates. If they turn it into a full-blown restaurant, then that's actually permitted under our code, so they would have less of a approval issue than the nightclub portion of it. So I don't see any major issues with that. There is also, if you notice, there's no bathroom shown on the plan. There is a common hallway that leads to the common bathrooms over by the meats. I did ask him about that as well.
The last question I have is, any parking concerns?
No, when we did the whole development for Foxtown, they have a shared parking agreement amongst all the different users and the street parking, and we had a parking analysis done. I think this will be actually a nice benefit to the area. I mean, the Foxtown yards that rarely gets used for events, that's going to provide a nice area for overflow parking. It gets busy, but I think the number of patrons going to this place will be more than accommodated by the parking that's out there.
Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah, just a couple of miscellaneous questions regarding this site. With the proposed opening remaining till 1 a.m. on weekends, have you had any inquiries from other businesses in the area to be able to do likewise?
Yeah, in fact, our first request was from Hollander when they originally, I don't know if maybe one or two of you were on the commission at the time, they actually have ability to stay open until 2 a.m., which we said would probably never happen, and I don't think it happens very often. Again, most places are shut down typically by midnight. So it is consistent with other approvals that we've given in the past.
Yeah,
Okay.
contrary to popular belief, we don't regulate when places close. It's a question I get all the time. Why don't you allow places to be open past 9? And I'm like, we do. They just can't staff them, and there's not enough customers, so they close early.
So, yeah, I guess that kind of, is there any way that the closure at 11 p.m. or whatever specified time is can be enforced, would be enforced?
Well, sure. I mean, the outdoor portion we have at 11 p.m., which is typical for most other developments in the town center. Now, if there's a noise complaint or if there's a complaint, they can always call the police department and they can go there and let them know that they have to shut down by 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll typically check with us first and make sure that's a requirement, but that's enforceable under the conditional use document that will be recorded with the approval.
Has the city police reviewed this proposal? So are they aware of it?
They're invited to every one of our meetings. They typically don't show up. I don't think there's much of a concern. Again, this is pretty typical for, you know, the brewery, the annex, you know, Spur 16. They all have this, pretty much Hollander, they all have the same conditions, and we haven't seen any. And I don't see it as a major issue because just with the clientele in Mequon, there's, again, what the mayor said, we're usually shut down by 10, 11 o'clock at night, so.
Okay. And then from looking at the site and so forth, it appears to me as though for the seating that would be outside that there's no way that music could be hired or be going on
We
outside.
typically
Live
cut off
music.
amplified music. It's the same thing at 11 p.m. So they're allowed to have music outside, but nothing past 11 p.m. as well.
'Cause
And
it's kind of
that's
it
what-
looks like it's just the existing sidewalk.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of. I mean, they could put some, you know, mini speakers out there or something like that for the customers that are sitting out there, but they can't have bands or anything like that without getting special approval. Again, we asked for a finalized open space plan for the exterior. If there's something in there that's alarming, we'd look into it and see what the issue is. But
Well, there's a band shell not too far
yeah,
away.
exactly.
Yeah, right. But in terms of the use of the specific area is what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Jack, can you go to the map? It doesn't have to be the fancy map, just the map, maybe the one that just says the,
This one?
yeah, that's, so is it on, it's on the south end of that north building, right?
Yeah, it's roughly in this area here. I can actually, if you want me to try to pull up Google Maps, I can probably do that for you.
Sure, that helps. Yeah, it's a little easier for people to get their bearings.
So here's the site basically. This is Weston Drive. So the nightclub portion will be on this location here, and the distillery portion is located over here. Does that clarify for you?
So again, the seating that we were just talking about on the outside is kind of that
There's a
gray
sidewalk
area right there.
Yeah, along this stretch, and then there's some wraparound seating behind it, for both sides.
Any other comments or questions? Or a motion? The applicant, I don't know if, is someone here to speak on behalf?
They are here. I don't know if they have anything they want to add or not.
Okay. If you've got anything to add, feel free to come up. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Assuming the applicant has no concerns, I would motion to approve per staff's recommendations.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, one bit I have is, I know we've been doing 1 a.m., but the fact that this is located right next to a residential area would bring up, and I can understand initially there probably wouldn't be any issues or anything like that, but I guess I would be concerned about ultimately it becomes like other areas throughout the metro area where it become very, very popular. Great, hope it happens. But if it's permitted to continue till 1 a.m. under the statute that we're talking about right here, or the condition that we're talking about, that's really the concern part I would have for, I guess, would be Friday, Saturday nights.
Well, again, that 1 a.m. is interior only. So, I mean, I guess if there was a major concern with people spilling out onto the street afterwards and making noise, we could always review their conditional use and
The
review it.
CUG does give you that flexibility, yes.
Yeah, yes, we have that flexibility.
That's right. Pardon me. Okay, so the important important reminder is that that pertains to the indoors and not on
Yeah,
the
it's not
sidewalk
outside.
area.
Yeah, we wouldn't allow it outside at 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Urbani.
Could you explain exactly what is on the second and third floor of these two buildings? Because it looks like fluorescent lighting on that second floor. Are these office suites? Are they all
The-
residential on the third floor? Like, what is?
The E1 building is office for both levels.
Okay.
The E2 level buildings were approved as extended stay suites. So those are supposedly like extended stays, people that live there for 6 months to a year. If they're like working at Rockwell or something and they need a longer period of time, those are extended stay suites. There's no straight residential apartments in either one of these buildings. So I'm assuming the gentleman that spoke would be living under the extended stay suite, but one of the extended stay suites.
Thank you.
But that's where the distillery is.
Correct.
Yeah. Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, one last thought. And so with the abundance of parking, so to speak, but yet the number of businesses that we'll have, it sounds like there'll be more than enough parking for people such that they're not actually parking on the street, but probably more.
Oh, we're actually encouraging
Yeah,
people to park on the street.
We're
Right.
okay with that.
Yeah, and because we see it with residents and so forth.
Yeah, we made, when Foxtown was originally approved, the PUD, they had a full-blown parking analysis done, and they have shared parking amongst all their sites, which works out really well. When there's somebody playing at the band shell, you can park in the annex, you can park in the brewery, and there's all shared parking, and there's connections between all those. So if we ever have a parking problem there, I think we'd be supportive of the fact that we have that much volume out there.
Yeah,
but I
when
don't- I
when the
don't see it.
parking analysis was done, all these businesses were conceived at their highest and best use, and the parking was done accordingly. So it's hard to imagine we'd put something more impactful in than that.
Yeah.
Thanks for confirming that.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. Any further comments? We haven't voted yet. If you'd like to make another statement outside of public hearing, feel free to come back to the microphone. No, we can now because we're not in public hearing. Sorry. Yeah, come on up to the microphone. Otherwise, we don't catch your audio for the recording.
Do we have any future date when these two businesses will be in operation?
I've not heard a time frame from the applicant regarding when they would be opening up at this point.
Yeah, whenever they can get them built out, I would imagine. But I have there's an expiration on this, but it's probably a year from a date of approval.
Yes,
So
yeah.
my guess would be within a year.
Okay, that's it.
All right. Any further comments or questions from the commission? Hearing none, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Urbani.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Gentis.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Stoker. Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
And we have yet one more public hearing. Same folks sponsoring this one as well. Applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a distillery at the property located right across the street at 10090 Northwestern Drive.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Does anyone here this evening wish to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we're back again. Take it away, Jack.
So this one requires the approval of the text amendment, and this one has all the distillery functions with it except the potential for the retail sales. They do show the classroom, they have the production and processing, they have a tasting room back here, and this is where if retail sales would be allowed per the federal law, this is where they do some of that. But since we don't know that, we left it open up in the air, and that's why we have the text amendment in front of you. So this would get approved conditioned upon approval of that text amendment. They meet all the other requirements of the micro distillery. The same issue goes for the outdoor seating, and the same issue goes for the hours of operation with regard to any outdoor spaces. So, again, we're supportive of this. I think this will be a real nice benefit and feature to the Foxtown and the city as a whole. So we're supportive of it, and I recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Schaefer?
Based on the layout that's provided, does everything adhere to the window?
Yes, we actually,
guidelines?
we worked with them ahead of time, and this is how we kind of codified some of that requirement. So we asked them to put the classroom up in the front corner, which they did. And then this is all, again, some semi-public space here. They put the tasting room, all this along the windows area. And so we're supportive of that. The mechanicals are all kind of buried in the back. So I think they did a nice job in trying to meet what we were looking for, so.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Or motions?
Motion to approve conditioned upon the approval of the text amendment and staff's recommendations.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Going once, going twice. Again, if a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Commissioner Urbani,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes, Commissioner Schaefer, Commissioner Stoker, Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
Congratulations, Foxtown, and look forward to seeing both open soon.
Shut that off so we can see.
On to regular business. We have a item for Trinity Lutheran Church. Applicant is seeking a building and site plan amendment for a new storage facility at the property located at 10729 West Freistadt Road. Go ahead,
Take it away.
Evan.
So yeah, this is a 40 by 60 storage barn meant to store lawnmowers, trailers, other equipment that they're going to be needing for the historical area. Let me see if I have the actual plat up here. It's in here somewhere. It's on Church Place, so we're in the historical area, historical society area. Here it is. Kind of highlighted here in yellow. Meets all the zoning requirements. It doesn't trigger any of the landscaping standards, but even so, since it's in a more wooded area and it's pretty screened from both Freistadt and even Church Place and Granville, that we didn't really think that requiring any additional landscaping was necessary or was going to improve it further than what it would be. There's no additional paving or dumpster enclosures or anything else proposed for the site either. So with all that, well, the architecture of the building and the siding used is board and batten, so it gives it that kind of more rustic or kind of rural look that is what the historical society area is kind of famous for. So with all that, staff recommends approval with conditions.
A nice rural-looking building in a rural area. Any comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah, just could you clarify in the recommendations that you recommend, item number 2 says removal of bridge across creek on the west side. What are we talking about there?
There's I don't think it's in here. This is Google Maps still up. There's kind of like looks like an old railroad tie kind of bridge crossing the creek. Where are we? I guess you can't really see it on here, but just across Little Menominee right here, there's almost like an old railroad tie bridge. We'd either like to see that taken out or have them take out a building permit for it, just so we could verify everything on it and make sure it's all good. Yeah, that's what. Oh, maybe you can see it on here.
It's located on that parcel then?
Right. Yeah. Oh, still going. I'm getting dizzy. Yeah, in this kind of thing right here, I think.
So the fact that it's just
It's a unpermitted structure, higher than 6 inches. So.
Thanks.
Oh, really? Well, that would take care of it pretty quickly then. Oh.
Well, it should be easy to comply with staff recommendation number 2 then.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? I think it's a good-looking building. I'd like one just like it someday. Put all my toys in. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that item carries. On to Point Real Estate for Orchards of Mequonigo LLC. The applicant is seeking preliminary plat, development agreement, and fill permit to allow for a 17-lot subdivision for the property located on the north side of Donges Bay Road, approximately 800 feet west of Wauwatosa Road, to be known in the future as Burr Oak Reserve.
And again, so this came for concept plan approval in May of 2022. I don't know why it didn't load the same way as the other one. So it's compliant with the concept plan. All the things that were conditional approval in the concept plan were met by the applicant with the pre-plat. The development agreement just kind of states in there things about financial requirements, so landscaping, escrow, open space plan, things of that nature. There was a little bit of a change with the size of the lots, but no more than 100 square feet for the largest one. So that staff really didn't think that warranted any wholesale change to the plan from the concept standpoint. So staff recommends approval.
Thank you. This is using almost all the remaining TDR credits, not
Yeah,
quite all the
5.
remaining. 5 of the last 6 or 7. There's
7.
1 or 2 hanging out there, but so hence the added 5 dwelling units on top of the 12 acres. But I'd like to see those TDR credits getting used finally. The process can work. It's the best idea that's seldom been used. At least that's my opinion. Anyway, any comments about the plan before us from the commission? Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah, I've got again a couple questions and clarifications and a couple of points. First, it's on before the staff recommendations, it says lots 3 and 4 are to allow access for 8,000 West Donges Bay Road. And I guess just looking at the map, I couldn't find the access between lots 3 and 4 on the, call it the preliminary plat that was the exhibit, or I didn't see it in the other exhibits. So is an easement required there, or?
Which is under condition.
I simply don't see an easement or anything on the
Well,
the
it's
maps.
it's not on here.
22.
It'll be required to be,
Okay,
yeah, required to be
It's condition
created.
22.
Yeah.
okay, and that's fine. And the next thing is just if there's a crosswalk put in on Donges Bay Road, who is required to do the maintenance of the crosswalk?
The city would be.
Okay, and the city will keep up on, and where I'm coming from is that's out on a pretty open road, and I think a crosswalk's a good idea, but it's the inevitable that the paint wears, and
We paint every line every year.
very good, very good. The one real big concern that I have in this, and I know you had this before the planning commission earlier, but it appears to me for the location, and there's just a quick visual on my part that I think ought to be confirmed, that you're showing a left turn lane may be required for the volume of traffic. Is that correct?
No left turn. It does meet the triggers for XL, decel, and bypass lanes.
Okay, and a bypass lane. So a bypass lane, can you tell us what a bypass lane is? Really, I'll jump ahead here where I'm going. My concern is when you're going eastbound on Donges Bay and you're approaching what will be the new intersection, because of the terrain, you do not see where the intersection is today, where that will be. And so it's about a foot higher than the driver's eye visibility, advanced visibility of cars turning there. And so again, I'm coming from things I did years ago, but it's a very fundamental concern that can we see far enough for what is a posted 45-mile-an-hour speed limit for vehicles to avoid turning movements at this new intersection that are coming from the west.
I can't speak to that. They'd have to do a traffic impact analysis in order to determine that. It's just based on the volume of traffic and the triggers in the standard specifications that the XL, decel, and bypass lanes are required.
Okay, and I guess I wouldn't question the access egress decel lanes as much as simply the visibility. If you're going westbound and you would not be seeing a car that is braking to make a left turn into this new street
Well,
far enough in
westbound,
advance,
they
far
do
enough
get a
in
turn.
advance to avoid a rear end.
Well, westbound, they
possibility.
would
West-
essentially have the turn lane.
Eastbound.
Okay, eastbound is different. Again, we don't have construction plans, so we don't have anything on
Okay,
the
well, I
color.
just see that as a crucial component of possibly for given the site distances. And this is just sitting in my car and just kind of eyeballing it and visually seeing where the new intersection is going to be. And the fact that I'm not taking an issue with the posted speed limit or anything like that, but that with a new intersection there and new turning movements, we may be introducing a new potential hazard.
I think that's true with every new thing we build.
But it can be avoided if fairly simply by requiring, I'm going to call it a skimming of the road of the profile. Short segment. So it doesn't disturb the plan and everything, but it's just a missing safety component that only becomes an issue when there is a rear end collision.
What is the proposed? I'm not following what the
Okay,
proposed fix is.
I guess the basic proposal is that staff ought to investigate and require, if need be, a modification by the developer to the profile of Donges Bay Road, a short section, to lower it down just a little bit so that it's clearly visible within the standard design standards.
Yeah, again, you'd need a full traffic impact analysis in order
I don't
to-
think it requires a traffic impact analysis. I think it's an engineering item that goes with the engineering of an intersection.
Are you suggesting we dig up Donges Bay Road and lower it?
I am suggesting that it literally could be a 50-foot, 100-foot stretch of the pavement that needs to be lowered. And it's in a non-impact area. It's right where it looks like it's right where that, what is it, PG, or utility station is immediately west of the development. So it's a small detail, but it's one of those that I'm coming purely from a traffic safety with what will be new turning movements coming there.
I'm having trouble. I understand your concern, but I'm having trouble how this, if it's not at the intersection, if it's down the road, that becomes the city's responsibility, not the developers.
There are a couple others that have preceded me where I've seen this happen, but it doesn't exist today as a problem, but with a new street serving a new development where there can be a turning vehicle that is slowing down but cannot be seen far enough in advance if you're traveling eastbound. Just as you approach that intersection, there's a short stretch of roadway where that, yeah, it's exaggerating certainly, but what is a common requirement.
I drove by there this evening on the way, and I guess I didn't notice the same thing, but
And it's easy to not notice it because it's a non-problem today because there's nobody turning there and everybody's going straight, so it's not an issue today. But when there are new, and not that there are that many left turns, but when there are, it poses a problem that is prompted by
we're
the
requiring them
development.
to do what when you say
Correct. So they'll have on
describe
the,
what we're requiring to do with the study of the intersection there.
on the north side at the intersection, that's where they'll be required to have what we call XL and decel lanes. So they will become de facto turn lanes. They're not marked as turn lanes, but the turning traffic westbound would be able to get out of the travel lane in order to decelerate as they go into the subdivision. And likewise, on the way out, they'd have a little bit of lane in order to get up to speed to join the travel lane.
And I agree with you with those features, and you know that we've already got those as requirements. So that's not, but
And
it's
south-
the eastbound along Donjas Bay, just upstream of what will be the new intersection.
So on
Where-
the
where-
south,
Yep.
on the south side for eastbound traffic at the intersection will be a bypass lane, so another full lane that is otherwise on the south side, so that during normal traffic movement, the eastbound traffic may continue. But if there is a car slowing or stopped to turn left, there's another lane for traffic to otherwise
That's what I
bypass.
thought you meant when you said bypass lane.
And that's
So-
what I was getting at.
So there's a lane, you just have to turn your wheel.
And I understand that, and that all makes well and good, but an example is Swan Road that's nearby on the
guess
new intersection there.
If-
where
if
that
we're-
has been
if we're
done,
I'm
but
gonna-
it's
With all due
simply
respect,
a-
Commissioner Barnes, I'm gonna cut this line of discussion off, because if we're requiring them to put in a bypass lane, and there's a structural defect with our road having a swell in it that's causing a sightline issue, I'm not gonna make the developer fix my road. I will do that as the city. I think that's the fair thing to do.
And I'm bringing it up solely as a need, I'm not stating who's required, but it's a new component there.
Well, I don't want it end up, well, anyone can make any motion to make it contingency of this proposal, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's all I'm saying. If there's a problem with our road, we'll fix our road. That'll be my commitment if this becomes a problem. Okay, any other comments on the,
I do have, sorry. One other thing, is there a plan for what would be an intersection overhead streetlight at this location? I didn't see one on.
A DA.
It is, okay.
thank you. Any other comments on the proposed plan? I lost track. Do we have a motion? Okay. Any comments or a motion?
I'll move to approve with with staff's recommendations.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Stoker. Commissioner Urbani.
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
All right, that's all for regular business in public hearings. We've got only one policy item left because we took care of another one earlier. That is the 2025 City of Mequon Community Survey topics. And Kim's going to come talk to us about what she's looking for there.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So the Public Welfare Committee is requesting ideas from every board and commission within the city organization so that they can start discussing what kind of topics to put on the survey. At this point in time, they have just vetted vendors in which to conduct the survey, so it's very early in the process. So we've forwarded that inquiry to all of you. I'd like to hear any brainstorming or any thoughts that anyone has had. But if we struggled to come up with some topics, I did take a look at our previous surveys and looked through our comprehensive plan, because that is one area where it has been documented in each sort of element of city government, whether it's environmental issues, land use, transportation, where the city has gone on record of identifying strengths and weaknesses, what our potential threats and opportunities are in the future. So as I looked through those, I saw some common themes. So I can definitely, share some of that with you if that helps create or provide some creativity among all of you. But I don't necessarily want to be the one driving it, because you all hear development and not only out in the street, but what happens here once a month. This is just our opportunity to throw out some ideas to public welfare and see what they come up with.
So yeah, any burning questions, something that keeps coming before us, you don't want to keep coming before us, you think should just be a new policy item that should just be incorporated into our code. I could think of a bunch of things, but I get many swings at this piñata, so I'm going to do not a lot of the talking here and let you all provide as much of the feedback as possible. Commissioner Urbani.
So the pool would be top on my list. What are we doing with the pool? Are we keeping the pool? Are we having it in the city center? Are we moving it somewhere else? Because I remember the last city survey and the results were very split. It was like 50% keep it where it is and 50% move it. And so then nothing ever happened.
Well, that's not why nothing ever happened.
Okay. And then I believe there's a task force that's redoing the master plan for the city center. And so I understand that's going on too. But I'd like an updated pool.
You and maybe 6 other aldermen, maybe a 7th. One would like to just get rid of the pool, but he's in the minority. Any other comments about city survey? It could be civic center, planning commission policy items, zoning. Everything's great. Commissioner Schaefer.
I might need help articulating this. I'm trying to think of like the scuttle and feedback generally, and I feel like, speaking of things that are split, the idea of open space versus the idea of development and where it's appropriate. I mean, we have a land use plan, so that is established. Sorry, thinking out loud is never my strong suit, obviously. But I'm wondering if there's a question somehow there about, what I want to do is tell people you can't just never develop anything, because I think that's what some people want. You can't just have everything stay exactly the same, and also don't raise our taxes and we'll just, you can't have everything. But I don't think that's a good way to put it in the survey. Someone else will have to word it more nicely than that.
Well, we've got consultants. We're going to pay a lot of money for question formulation.
Thing around tolerance, I guess, for development. I don't know if that's the angle or not. But I feel like that.
So maybe something along the lines of infill development versus, I'll use a word that'll strike a reaction about what I'll call sprawl, for the lack of a better word. Filling in sites that are, we've got this, city's got a footprint, right? there's a footprint within the greater footprint. There's the footprint that's sort of developed, but there's pockets all over it that aren't. Is there maybe a good question to ask? Is there preference to fill that in versus seeing it expand? That still allows development, but it doesn't increase our footprint. Yeah. That could be a decent question. Commissioner Stoker.
Certainly ties into the same conversation that you just brought up. If we don't want to raise taxes, we're going to need more development. We have a lot of areas in the city that are zoned for 5-acre density. I happen to have developed one of the last 5-acre subdivisions, and there's 6 lots. All 6 of them mow less than 1 acre, and the rest is natural. The buyers don't want 5 acres. The density is crazy. There's land available or becoming available west that the numbers just do not work at 5-acre density. And I think the city should be ready to have a conversation about rural Mequon. And I'm not looking to go to 1-acre density. I'm looking, can we look at areas that are 5-acre density and take them to 3? The reality is the cost of development. People don't want to spend $350,000 for 5-acre lots that they don't want. They would rather spend $275,000 for 3 acres, which is still probably an acre more than they want, but they're probably more willing to do that. I have made this statement. There's a parcel of land that's 74 acres that I could develop and probably get 12 5-acre lots out of, and I'd have to charge $350,000 a lot. I am here to tell you, if I could get it to 3 acres and get 22 lots, I could still sell, first of all, sell those lots faster, the 3-acre lots faster than the 5-acre lots, and the price of the home, AKA, that means what are we going to get in tax revenue? We're going to get more tax revenue from 22 lots than we are the 12 or 13, and I'm going to get it for the city faster. But we have to be open to the idea of changing from 5-acre to 3-acre zoning. And again, I know this is land use, so I don't know if that's what you really want to be talking about in this conversation or not, but I think the city, at some point, we're going to have that discussion. Or the reality is taxes are going to go up. If we stymie residential land development, it's a mathematical certainty, much like the movie Titanic. At some point, if we don't have land development for residential, our taxes are going to have to go up.
And those areas that they're not mowing are not exactly like wildflower fields or but they're thistle and invasive species and buckthorn and stuff that nobody wants, and that's being spread everywhere. It's not like it's being maintained as a nice unmaintained area,
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
I'm familiar with the location where you're talking about. I think there was a proposal for a conservation subdivision that we mysteriously voted against because we wanted to force a larger footprint and we would have preserved more land. So maybe taking another poke at the conservation subdivision, making sure people understand what that, well, no one will ever perfectly understand what it means. They have a better idea what it means. But yeah, I hear you. I think that's exactly, I mean, there's nothing off limits here. We'll see what public welfare ends up putting on the survey, but to get questions fed into the hopper, there's all sorts of things we could do to promote that and maybe get more of something else what we want. I think there's one of the concepts we kicked around just at a really, really high level was the concept of an agrihood, where it's got an agriculture component, but it's kind of like a conservation subdivision, but you could maybe trade getting a little more what you want for a little more density. You maintain some of that agriculture heritage in the conserved area, so you don't get a 40-acre parcel full of buckthorn and thistle. Maybe someone's still actively farming it, or maybe some of the residents are doing small gardens and farming it.
It's reasonable when you start getting to 3-acre. If someone's living, if you have a home on a 3-acre lot, it's still a lot to mow. But as a developer and someone who creates homeowners documents, we dictate how much has to be maintained. 3 acres is still a big ask, but that's much more reasonable than 5 acres, because the spring that we've had with the rain we've had, when people have to mow the lawn twice a week to just stay up with it, and if you've got 5 acres to mow, you don't have happy customers, I can tell you that. There's not a lot of happy people. No one wants to mow 10 acres a week.
And we were mowing 3 times a week for a while, and I told my wife, it's your fault, you put fertilizer on it.
But I think the reality is it's it's obviously West Mequon, and we want to keep it rural. The question is a home, a single-family residence on 3 acres versus a single-family residence on 5 acres. Does that take away from the rural feel? And I would implore anyone on this to go drive through Farmdale Estates. Those are 5-acre lots. Nobody's mowing all 5 acres. And I personally don't think it looks, I think the stuff that's not being mowed doesn't look good. And, you know, again, I certainly don't think a 3-acre lot's gonna make it feel non-rural.
There's a topic. Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, I firmly agree with the points being raised. Very good ones. One that I'd like to is, and it's general in a way, but interest in pedestrian facilities. And in a general way, just to see what people offer or come up with ideas, not suggesting any of them are doable, but what have you. And one in particular, with Park Board that we brought up with Sewer Pack, and it's placed on the map, is, and how we do it, I don't know, but the idea of a bike crossing over the Milwaukee River using Donges Bay Road. Did I say that right, Donges Bay? Or yeah. That a bike only pedestrian bridge be done. Now, granted, that's a mammoth project that would take some seeking of creative funding, etc. But having lengthy discussions in the past about that, and hearing a lot of interest in what would be a bike connection and not a vehicle connection.
We did get some rough numbers a few years ago on that. It's more money than the city's annual budget. It's double-digit millions of dollars. It's almost to the point you could drive a car on it if you want to comply with federal guidelines.
There's a variety of ways it can be done, so I'm not questioning that, but it is the strength of, or what kind of the real arguing point for it is the novelty of being able to connect the east and west sides of Mequon together as a community, and with the interurban bike trail and north-south bike trail, in terms of being a merit for large population.
Yeah,
area.
that idea does come and go, but it's
so I
horrendously
just bringing
expensive.
it up, bringing it again.
Any other ideas? I think we have a little bit of a time here, so if anyone thinks of anything over the course, I mean, heck, we've got most of the summer to think of ideas till we really get in the committee on detailed question writing. If something just strikes you on the way home from work someday, and go home and write an email to Kim, and we'll collect some ideas. But we don't have to clamp this off by any means. We've got plenty of time to talk, but so I don't mean to shut down any discussion. This should be free form and open-ended, and then drop it in public welfare's lap, and they get to decide what to do with it, with a little bit of oversight from me. So
Yeah, I would add that you all commented on a number of themes that have consistently come up. Obviously, rural character and density, it has been a long, rich part of our history, and so there's a lot of conversation in the past about preservation of that and balancing development. I think one other one, and bike paths connecting our river resources to neighborhoods and other pedestrian systems and neighborhood networks, all of that came up. Taxes versus development has come up. One of the themes that was pretty consistent that maybe has some merit in validating is the overall population of the city. It's always been targeted somewhere between 25 and 30,000. In some cases, some survey questions were asked and people chose, no greater than 27,000. There's a lot of documentation about the city being almost built out in terms of population, and that being a very positive reaction from our citizens. And as we have done major land use studies like Central Growth, like Uleo Creek, we have always reported out on what those potential population changes would be based on our household size, which is about 2.2 average household size. It's pretty low. But I think, as we talk about density, as we talk about development, as we talk about taxes, another piece of that is probably ultimately where do we see that population growth ending? And then the shift from a land use analysis, if the population growth is X and our land use right now will generate that amount of population, then what is the shift in focus with land use? And some other things that are talked about in the surveys are, taking public infrastructure projects and facilities that have started and are great additions, but how do we expand those? How do we make them more accessible? Like the river walk between Mequon and Thiensville, and getting from town center to Dungeness Bay, those types of things have kind of resonated in some of these surveys. So, there's always work to be done, but so, maybe part of it too is focusing on those capital improvement projects going forward for the next 10, 15 years.
That made me think of a question. So average household size 2.2, that I did not know. Do we happen to know the average age or age range of citizens?
Oh, yeah.
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 It
That's a
skews,
small
it
household.
skews, between like 38 and 42 is
Oh.
is generally that.
All right.
It might
that's not
even
what I
it
was
might even be trending a little bit
younger.
older now, I would
It
say.
keeps trending. It keeps trending a little older.
That small household size.
Yeah.
I was picturing empty nester. I was picturing a different, like a more aging population.
Yeah, there's.
And that is another issue that's pretty prevalent, even going back to 2010,
Yeah.
is the interest in senior housing, empty nester style housing, and identifying locations in the city that would be
Appropriate.
ideal for that, close to other services. A lot of people want to remain in Mequon and don't want, what they had as the family home. And I will say that the company that's doing the market analysis for Port Washington Road, they're at the point where they finish up some stakeholder input, and they did hear a lot of that same theme with stakeholders that they reached out to in the public. The interest for lifestyle senior type housing, active housing.
Yeah, seniors don't want to be active mowing a 5-acre lot.
We all forget that it wasn't too long ago we had declining enrollment in our schools.
Right.
And we were struggling to fill the school classrooms. But what makes Mequon Mequon? The schools, low taxes, the relatively rural feel of it. I'll give it that. But it obviously the age demographic plays a huge part in this. If we don't bring kids into this schools, we're gonna lose that battle too. So, and where do those families and the move-up families go in Mequon right now? And you have to keep providing housing stock. It's a national. I mean, this is something you see nationally. It's not just Mequon.
Any other topics?
Well, the development rights, the transfer of development rights, which you talked about earlier tonight, and using those as preservation of farmland, open space, has resonated throughout the years as being a really positive.
Yeah, everyone likes
And even to the point, at one point there was the question about whether the city should get more engaged in the market and purchase those development rights. But I was going to bring up the issue of the agri-hoods too. Maybe there's a twist on the conservation subdivision theme that allows generational farmers to leave their land in an agricultural form and not necessarily go to the other end of the spectrum of a conventional subdivision. Maybe there's a way to leave some legacy with those generational farmers.
That would make a good survey question, because everyone says they want to preserve farming.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people lining up to do it.
Right.
And
that next generation of that
Yeah.
family may not be there to do it or want to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a problem everywhere in the state, not just here.
Right.
that would make a good survey question. Maybe, is there a willingness to trade a little bit of density for getting something that's a really desirable preservation of use we say we want to preserve? That'd be an interesting pulse check. I think it sounds cool, but I'm not a developer, and I don't know what it'll cost to do, and I know a few people I can ask for opinions, but sure, yeah, it's a thing. Evan wrote a whole paper on it for school, so
Evan wrote his
See me
thesis.
for further comment.
yeah, this is.
Evan can send you his thesis.
Actually, yeah, I've got a copy. We talked about it at a staff meeting once, and I've had other people chirp about it before, not seriously, just conceptually. No one's brought anything forward, but it is kind of interesting. And another one that's related but similar is I've had the thought in my head, if there's people that want to go off grid and do something green, is there a potential incentive for that? Wouldn't be too hard to go almost totally off grid. You'd never actually pull the plug, but you would maybe be a net producer of electricity.
The cost
Oh yeah,
to do that associated with it, then we better be talking about eighth acre lots, because no one's gonna be able to afford to pay for more than an eighth acre lot if you want to start looking at that. It is.
we've
it is
had a few here that have
extraordinary.
we've had a few here who've been willing to pay the cost just because not because they're going to get a 10-year payback on the electricity. They want to do it because they believe in it so much they're willing to invest their money. But sure, yeah. You have the ability to care more financially, yeah, certainly.
Keep in mind, $93,000 of every single-family home in the United States of America, $93,000 of cost is created by government regulation between the lot development and building a home. $93,000 of every single home.
That's an interesting statistic.
It's staggering.
No, well, green costs green, but that is certainly true. Any other suggestions? Agritopia, it's probably trademarked. Yeah.
Phase 2. No, these were great ideas. I'll capture them in a summary, and if anybody has any other thoughts, just email us and we'll include it.
Yeah, it might
And we'll report
it might
back to
occur
planning.
over the next couple of months as you read packets or see things. Yeah, just kind of.
Well, Public Welfare asked to have these back to them at their July meeting. But this is really just, they'll be collecting all of them. It's just really the first round. So I'm sure we can send more narrow focused or additional topics over the next couple months.
So yeah, that meeting's about 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Historically, the surveys have been about development and land use. So I don't know if there's going to be a theme. Maybe it's some other department's turn. I don't know.
I know the answer to that survey question.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to ask that. Yeah.
We've got over 20.
But we know the number of
Yeah.
banks, the banks we have.
It's
Maybe the question
parks
should be
or
how
open
many
space
people
areas.
walk
Yeah,
into a bank.
yeah, it's 23, 24 if you count the counties.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one understands it, but
One thought on parks, just coming from the Parks Board after many years. A recurring issue years ago was lack of resources to do anything with the great parks that we have. very specifically to upgrade playground equipment, or I'm just kind of thinking randomly, you know, some of the things that are happening now, the bathrooms over at over on the west side, etc. But I know there's a lot of interest in maybe some specific things that's
Yep.
I'm not suggesting additional parks or anything, but
No, I think that's the point of some of what I read too. Taking our existing amenities and how do we expand them? How do we contemporize them? How do we make sure they stay
Precisely.
relevant?
Yeah.
and then as a park board, that was a continuing frustration to have these tremendous facilities without the funding to do anything.
Yeah.
You may recall the last survey, we had some questions along those lines, and what we're doing now is the direct output of some of that work. It just takes a while to get the money lined up and a few other things ironed out, and then we got a gracious gift from the federal government with the ARPA money, which helped.
How do we avoid persistence of that? Is my viewpoint on that.
But yeah, keep it in the survey, yeah. See what people want. It doesn't stay the same, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. That leaves us with just one more motion to make. Pardon? Oh, the next meeting? I don't know. It's usually, oh, wait, it's on the back page. July 22nd. Yep. So,
Second.
motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.